You know, there's something I've been thinking about lately, something that really hits home as we get older. It's this idea that when we look back on our lives, we don't regret the things we did nearly as much as the things we didn't do. The chances we didn't take, the words we didn't say, the moments we let slip by. And after talking to so many wonderful folks in their 70s, 80s, and beyond, I've noticed something fascinating. Nearly all of them share the same few regrets. It's not about money or fame, or even the big mistakes we've made. No, the regrets that linger are quieter, deeper, the kind that whisper to you in those quiet moments before bed, or when you're sitting alone with your thoughts. But here's the good news. It's never too late to change that. Today we're going to talk about the 5 things that, after 99% of people, wish they'd done differently. And more importantly, how you can avoid those regrets starting right now. Let's start with the first one, and this one comes up more than any other. Not spending enough time with the people who truly matter. Isn't it funny how life gets so busy, even when we think we've slowed down? We get caught up in routines, chores, the little distractions that fill our days. And before we know it, weeks or even months have gone by without really connecting with the people we love most. Maybe it's a friend you've been meaning to call, a sibling you haven't seen in too long, or even your own kids and grandkids who live just a little too far away. I'll never forget what a lovely woman named Margaret told me. She said, "I thought I had all the time in the world to visit my sister. Then one day I didn't." That's the thing about time. It tricks us into thinking there's always more of it. But the truth is, the best moments are the ones we make happen. So here's my challenge to you. Today, reach out to someone you've been missing. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture, just a phone call, a letter, or even setting a date for a visit. Because when we look back, we'll never wish we'd spent less time with the people we love. Now, the second regret is just as powerful, and it's one that so many of us struggle with. Letting fear hold us back from trying new things. How many times have you thought, "I'm too old for that"? Maybe it's traveling somewhere new, picking up a hobby, or even just saying yes to an invitation when you'd rather stay home where it's comfortable. But here's what I've learned from folks who've lived well into their 80s and 90s. The ones with the fewest regrets are the ones who kept saying yes to life, even when it scared them a little. Take my friend George, for example. At 78, he decided to learn how to paint, something he'd always been curious about but never thought he'd be any good at. And you know what? He wasn't good at it at first, but that wasn't the point. What mattered was the joy it brought him, the sense of aliveness that came from trying something new. He told me, "I spent too many years worrying about looking foolish. Now I realize the only foolish thing is not trying at all." So what's that thing you've been putting off? That class you've been curious about? That trip you've been dreaming of? That book you've wanted to write? Don't let fear decide for you. The time is now, not someday, not when the timing's better. Because the truth is, the timing will never be perfect. But the joy of trying, that's always worth it. Now let's talk about the third regret, and this one might surprise you. Not taking better care of our health when we had the chance. Now I know what you might be thinking. Oh, here we go, another lecture about eating vegetables and exercising. But hear me out, because this isn't about guilt or shame. It's about freedom. The freedom to enjoy your later years with energy, with strength, with the ability to do the things you love. So many people I've talked to say the same thing. I wish I'd taken better care of myself sooner. Not because they wanted to look a certain way, but because they didn't realize how much those small daily choices would add up over time. The evening walks they skipped, the extra vegetables they passed up, the checkups they put off. It all matters. But here's the beautiful part. Our bodies are incredibly forgiving. It's never too late to start making kinder choices for yourself. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe it's adding one more serving of veggies to your day, taking a short walk in the morning sunshine, or finally scheduling that doctor's visit you've been avoiding. Small steps lead to big changes, because when we're healthy, we're not just adding years to our life, we're adding life to our years. Now these first 3 regrets, they all have something in common. They're about the things we didn't do, the chances we didn't take. But there are two more we need to talk about, and they're just as important. So let's keep going. You know, as we've been talking about these regrets, I can't help but think about how so many of them stem from one simple truth. We often don't realize what truly matters until it's too late. We get so wrapped up in the day-to-day, the errands, the obligations, the little stresses, that we lose sight of what really fills our hearts. And that brings us to the fourth regret, one that might sting a little, but it's important to talk about. Not expressing our feelings when we had the chance. How many times have you held back from saying "I love you" because it felt too sentimental? Or bitten your tongue when you wanted to apologize because pride got in the way? Or maybe there's someone you've been meaning to thank, a friend who was there for you during a tough time, a family member who always showed up, but you just never got around to putting it into words. I remember a man named Robert who told me about his biggest regret. His father passed away suddenly, and they'd had a bit of a strained relationship in those final years. "We never really fought," he said, "but we never really talked either, and now I'll never get to tell him how much I admired him." That stuck with me, because the funny thing about feelings is, we think they're obvious. We assume the people we care about know how we feel. But here's the truth. People need to hear it. They need to hear that they matter, that they're loved, that they made a difference. So here's my challenge to you. Don't wait for the right moment. That moment is now. Write that letter. Make that call. Say the thing you've been meaning to say. Even if it feels awkward at first, even if your voice shakes a little, say it anyway. Because the words we leave unspoken are the ones that haunt us the longest. Now let's talk about the fifth regret, and this one might be the hardest to hear. Working too much and not truly living. Now I know what you might be thinking, but I'm retired. This doesn't apply to me. But here's the thing, this isn't just about careers or jobs. It's about how we spend our time, our energy, our life. So many people look back and realize they spent years, sometimes decades, chasing after things that didn't actually make them happy. Maybe it was climbing the corporate ladder, or keeping up with the Joneses, or just grinding away at something because it felt like the responsible thing to do. But when you talk to people in their later years, you start to notice something. No one ever says, "I wish I'd spent more time at the office." What they do say is, "I wish I'd traveled more when I had the chance. I wish I'd spent more afternoons sitting on the porch with my spouse. I wish I'd taken that silly vacation instead of worrying about the budget." Now, I'm not saying responsibilities don't matter. Of course they do. But there's a balance to be struck. A way to honor your obligations without letting them steal your joy. And if you're sitting there thinking, "Well, it's too late for me," I want you to hear this. It's not. Every single day is a chance to choose differently, to slow down, to savor, to say, "You know what? Today, I'm going to enjoy my life." Because here's the secret no one tells you when you're younger. Life isn't about the milestones or the achievements. It's about the moments in between. The laughter around the dinner table, the quiet mornings with a good book, the feeling of sunshine on your face. Those are the things that stay with us. Those are the things we never regret. Now, we've covered a lot so far. The importance of connection, the danger of letting fear win, the gift of good health, the power of speaking your heart, and the need to truly live instead of just going through the motions. But there's one more thing we need to talk about, and it ties everything together. As we come to the end of our conversation, I want to share something important with you. All these regrets we've been talking about, they aren't meant to make us feel guilty or sad about the past. They're here to free us, because when we know what truly matters in the long run, we can start making different choices today. And that brings us to the heart of it all, the biggest lesson that ties every one of these regrets together. Not realizing sooner that happiness is a choice. Isn't it funny how we spend so much of our lives waiting for the right conditions to be happy? We tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when I retire, when the kids are settled, when I finally take that trip." But happiness isn't a destination, it's a way of traveling. And the people who look back with the fewest regrets are the ones who figured that out, even if it took them a while. I think about my neighbor, Helen, who's 92 years young. She's had her share of hardships, losses, health struggles, all the things life throws at us. But whenever I see her, she's smiling, telling stories, finding joy in the smallest things. One day I asked her secret. She laughed and said, "Oh, honey, I just decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to waste a perfectly good day being miserable." Simple as that. She chooses it every morning. Now, I'm not saying we should ignore our struggles or pretend everything's fine when it's not. Life gets hard sometimes, and that's real. But here's what I've learned from people like Helen. Happiness isn't about having a perfect life. It's about noticing the good that's already there, the warmth of your favorite mug in your hands, the way your grandchild's face lights up when they see you, the comfort of a song that's been with you for decades. These little moments, they're the stuff of a life well lived. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Today is your chance to start fresh. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. You get to decide to reach out to someone you love, to try that thing you've been putting off, to treat your body with kindness, to say the words that need saying, to slow down and savor the life you've built. Because here's the beautiful truth. It's never too late to change your story. Those regrets we talked about, they don't have to be yours. You get to write a different ending. So tell me, which of these really resonated with you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this video reminded you of someone who needs to hear this message, go ahead and share it with them. Because the more we talk about what really matters, the better we all live. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Remember, every sunrise is a new opportunity to live without regrets. Here's to making the most of yours. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We've got so many more meaningful conversations ahead. Until next time, keep choosing joy, keep choosing connection, and keep choosing life. See you soon.